intense. Did anybody get anything out of that at all? Message there, right? Remember, drugs and alcohol sell themselves. Recovery is very difficult to sell, right? And so if I came down from a spaceship from Mars and I came into this room, I saw you guys sitting here, I go, why are you guys here? And we're gonna, probably because of drug and alcohol abuse and addiction. I'm a Martian from Mars and I say, what is addiction? So what is it? Don't be shy. What is addiction? How do you define it? How would you get someone that doesn't even understand the concept to relate to it? Is it something nice?
No.
Is it something bad?
Yes.
Like bad, like cancer bad.
Yes.
That can cause you to die bad, right?
Yes.
So addiction is something really bad. Is it something that's kind of like not talked about all the time because of possibly shame and stigma? Is that true? And so I want to say I admire and commend everybody that's in this room right now because you guys have the courage to be here to do something about this, to learn about this, to be educated, and actually make a difference in the community. You know, our community basically is established on common unity. What do we have in common as values and morals? And so let's break it down. What is a common value in America? There's a bunch of them.
Money.
Money's one of them, but how about kids? Every politician tells me they care about the kids. We love the kids. We're doing it for the kids, right? So kids are very, very important, isn't that true? And some kids have drug problems, isn't that true? So how many places are there in Michigan if your loved one, a young person under age 18, needs treatment for substance abuse? How many facilities do you have as an option in Michigan?
I don't know.
One, in Carroll's, right? And if your kid misbehaves himself and gets caught with drugs, using drugs or selling drugs, how many facilities do we have to lock them up, like maximum security style, like adult prisoners in Michigan? Over 40. So the ratio is kind of backwards, isn't it? It's 40 to 1. So when you say you care about kids, but don't have places to help and heal them, you got places to lock them up, that's kind of a mixed message, isn't it? So addiction is a disease. People have heard that term before, addiction is a disease. So does anyone agree with that? Okay. Tell me why you agree with that. I'm just curious. Why is it true?
I don't think people choose to be addicted.
Excellent, right? Why would someone choose that? Cancer. People get cancer from maybe a bad lifestyle, smoking cigarettes. But people that smoke cigarettes don't plan on getting cancer, right? So no one wants to be an addict. See, addiction is a disease because it's defined by the criteria. It's got symptoms and it's treatable. And kind of prove the point. If somebody had the flu and they came to you guys and they said that they're working for you and say, I can't come into work today, I have the flu. What can you see or do or identify in that person that tells you, I see some symptoms and they can't work and it's true? About runny nose, sneezing, congestion, right? So a person's right in front of you, you can see in their face, their watery eyes, they're sneezing, they're not healthy. This person has a flu, they can't come into work. So imagine a person that's homeless on the streets, right? The person that's a homeless alcoholic or an addict, panhandling for change. What's different about that person than the average person, physically? How does he look different than the rest of us in this room? As a stereotype.
Trained or no?
Yeah, does he look good? Does he look healthy?
No.
Is he dressing really well? Is he wearing a tuxedo? Right? He doesn't look so good, he don't smell so good, he don't dress so good, right? Just being honest. But remember, addiction is very complicated. I had a lawyer come to see me, and he was there for domestic violence. And he was 40 years old, and he had a 23-year-old girlfriend. And so he's telling me about his girlfriend, and they got into a really big fight. And so I asked him, was she, intoxicated or high? Well, she had a couple beers. And I said, well, does she use any drugs? Nope, no illegal drugs at all. Okay, that's a good thing. How about prescription drugs? Oh yeah, she has severe ADHD and she's got anxiety and she's on Ambien as well. I go, what do you mean? She's on Adderall, Xanax, and Ambien. I go, wait a second, you guys got into a big fight. Was she drinking on her Xanax? He goes, yeah. And I go, and I said, how does she take her Adderall? Oh, she enjoys snorting it. It helps her better with her ADHD. You guys know that every bottle of Adderall, not one of them says snort as needed. You guys know that, right? That's a sign that something's not normal. So I say to the guy, I go, sir, there is a strong possibility that your girlfriend has a prescription drug abuse problem. He goes, Raj, you're crazy. Let me show you a picture of her. He shows me a picture of this really pretty girl. I go, you understand how cancer works? She's in stage 1. Just wait till stage 4 shows up. She'll be very different. So addiction is complicated because sometimes people don't look so bad, right? But they have a severe addiction. Is that making sense? And so we have physical symptoms. What about mental symptoms of addiction? What's different about the guy that's panhandling for change? What's different about him mentally than the average person? Desperate, right? Does he possibly have depression? Right? Alcohol is a depressant. You keep drinking alcohol, how do you feel over time? More depressed, right? Is it possible that breaking promises to other people can cause you anxiety? Because I'm assuming a person that becomes homeless due to alcohol and drug abuse, right? At some point has promised somebody, I'm not going to use drugs or alcohol. And they probably meant it in that moment. When they broke that promise, how did it affect your self-esteem and your self-confidence? Right? So a person with low self-esteem, low self-confidence, feeling all kinds of anxiety left untreated turns into depression. The guy's very, very depressed. What's he going to reach for? Make all those feelings go away. Alcohol, maybe heroin, maybe cocaine. How about socially? How does addiction affect a person socially over time with regards to relationships with friends and family?
Isolation.
Yeah, right? Is it possible you begin to see your teenager, they're 16 years old, they begin smoking marijuana. All their friends that really are serious about sports kind of leave them, and they have a brand new set of friends that love smoking marijuana. They got Bob Marley t-shirts on, right? Is that possible? So we see a change in friend group. If I'm drinking too much at the bar, and my friends begin to complain about that, Raj, you're drinking too much, you're drinking too fast. I can slide down the bar and find some new friends that say, Raj, you drink just right. You see my point? So a change in friend group begins to happen because a person begins to push away those that care about them. So how could it affect a mom and a dad when they see their loved one begin using drugs and alcohol? How does it make them feel?
Sad.
Out of control? Sad? Confused? Pain? Why are you doing this, right? And so we see these social symptoms of addiction. We see isolation, loss of friend group, change in friend group. What about legally? People that abuse drugs and alcohol, do they ever have any legal issues? Like what kind? DUIs, you're kidding me. So a DUI is a sign of an alcoholic, right? But 1, 2, and 3, I had a guy that came to see me, he had 5 DUIs. I'm not big on giving people labels, not really my thing. But I said, sir, this is your 5th DUI. You're facing serious prison time. You know you're an alcoholic. He goes, you're crazy. I'm not an alcoholic. I just love drinking and driving. Wow. He wasn't joking. And I said to him, sir, are you going to go tell the judge that? He goes, of course. I go, sorry for saying this. The judge's going to think that you're absolutely crazy, like batshit, like crazy, like wow. You can't say that in a courtroom crazy. Like, we're going to put you in a cage for a very long time until you figure out that you have an alcohol problem, not a drinking and driving problem. The correlation kind of shows something's wrong with the way you drink and your response to alcohol, right? So we have possession charges, we have DUIs, we have MIPs, right? What about a person abusing drugs and alcohol for a period of time? How does it begin to affect them financially? Over time, I'm using drugs and alcohol. What happens to my finances over time? I can begin spending my money on all these drugs and alcohol and begin borrowing money from Devin. Devin, I need some money. My car broke down. Devin's like, that's the 5th time this week, Raj. I know, but you know how it is, right? So borrowing money, running out of money. How about this? If you're using heroin and you got to make a choice, I got to pay my cell phone bill or buy my heroin. Guess what comes first? Oh, the heroin comes first. We'll pay the cell phone bill later. We'll pay the rent later. And we see parents and families not feeding their kids because they buy their crack and their heroin first, and then the kids go hungry. You follow what I'm saying? And so we see a change in priorities financially, and we see basically what's called the high cost of low living. There's no money left. All spent on drugs and alcohol. Now how about with regards to using drugs and alcohol over time, how does it affect somebody spiritually? Morals and values. Kid's raised in a really good family with really good morals and values, but over time he's using heroin, she's using heroin. What happens to those morals and values over time? Anybody want to speculate? Yeah. Lots of parents come to see me and they have wonderful daughters, and the daughters get caught up in heroin and they have horrible friends. We just want to pick on the guys and say the guys are all at fault, but the girls go to jail. They're 19 years old and they go, you know what, you're really cute. You got a heroin problem? They're like, yeah, I know how you can make a whole bunch of money. Here's a website, go make a whole bunch of money. And really bad things happen. You follow what I'm saying? So we have this, morals and values begin to change over time. People take all these unnecessary risks. We turn a good guy into a bank robber. We turn a good girl into a prostitute. So you see that we have all kinds of symptoms with addiction. With drug addiction and alcoholism, we have physical symptoms, we have mental symptoms, we have legal symptoms, we have social symptoms, we have spiritual symptoms, we have all kinds of symptoms. See, the flu is really easy to treat. Do you know why? It only has physical symptoms. Addiction is really hard to treat because it has a whole bunch of symptoms going on simultaneously. But the main symptom of addiction is the inability to get high successfully. So what does that mean? The inability, it's not challenged, I'm not challenging anybody in here to try heroin and use it successfully, but what does it mean? The inability to get high successfully, what does that mean? That means when addicts begin to use drugs and alcohol, law enforcement just keeps showing up. They can't find a way to pay their bills. Moms keep crying, right? They can't hold a job. They don't look so good. They don't smell so good. So you see, when a person really has a drug or alcohol problem, the hallmark is the inability to get high successfully. It's taking trauma on their mind and on their ability to follow through. Lack of responsibility and irritability. Has anyone in this room lost someone due to alcoholism or addiction? It's way too many people. So you guys know we have an epidemic right now, right?
Yes.
You guys must have heard of it. Opioid epidemic, right? Losing about 174 people per day. That's a lot of people, isn't it? Can you imagine if the Taliban killed 174 Americans every day, what we would do about that? It's amazing, right? So we're losing that many people. There's an entire generation that's being hollowed out. You know, I do a lot of stuff with FAN, and usually when I do FAN presentations, there's usually about, I don't know, 2 or 3 families up front with a 2 to 5-year-old kid up front, and the grandparents with the kid. And you know why that is? Because the child's mother is dead of an overdose. So let's say you're a really bad person and your goal is to make as many addicts as possible. What would you do to people to make addicts? Anybody have an idea? As far as childhood, what's the goal in childhood to create a future addict?
Starting on prescriptions.
Start with prescriptions, but what about the household? Should it be very calm and loving or should it be chaotic?
Yeah.
Right. So we call it ACE, right? Adverse childhood experiences. People that develop addiction, especially with heroin, tend to have lots of high ACE scores, which means they've seen really, really bad things in their childhood, such as drunken moms, drunken fathers, bills not being paid, not having a place to stay, growing up in poverty, right? And then use your imagination, physical, mental, and sexual abuse. And so oftentimes they have what's called a role reversal. They begin having to be adults at a very young age. So if you're growing up and really bad things happen to you physically, mentally, and sexually, how does it affect your self-esteem? Self-confidence. So now we're keeping secrets, right? In a really, really bad dysfunctional family, you have don't trust anybody, don't tell anybody our business, and don't you dare feel that way. My feelings are controlled and regulated, and by the way, whatever you do, we're going to invalidate it. Hey, Mom and Dad, I got first place in the track meet. Yeah, was that a little local meet or was it a state meet? Hey, Mom and Dad, I got a 4.0 on my test today. Well, who had the best score in the classroom? Invalidation, invalidation. So if your goal is to create an addict, you want to invalidate as much as possible, give them physical, mental, and sexual abuse, trauma, and easy access to drugs. Because I do a lot of addiction work and PTSD work, and guess what? When it comes to heroin addiction, especially with females, a lot of people are self-medicating their PTSD. 80% have extensive sexual abuse histories. That's amazing, isn't it? 80%. So people have no money, no resources for a really good psychiatrist, no good therapy, right? Have bad things happen to them. Someone shows up with a very powerful painkiller. You can start off with Vicodin. You see those sheet there? It talks about how we create an addict. we have called gateway drugs, plural. Used to be always pin this on marijuana. Marijuana is the gateway drug. No, there's multiple paths into addiction. Cigarettes are a gateway drug. Alcohol is a gateway drug. See, young people's minds shouldn't have drugs in them, whether that drug is nicotine, or whether that drug is alcohol or marijuana. We want all our kids to grow up with really good brains, right? Because we have common unity. Those are values that we have. We share those values. So when a kid's on Adderall and he's in 6th grade, what's he feeling like on Adderall? It's methamphetamine's cousin. Isn't that amazing? If you want to mess somebody up, they did a study to determine who gets Adderall in the classroom. All you got to do is go into any classroom from 3rd grade to high school. Ask a teacher about everybody's birth date. Run all those birthdays together. The youngest person in the classroom is the most likely to get an Adderall prescription. Isn't that amazing? They actually medicate immaturity. Right? Because we want to chemically restrain kids to behave themselves. There's no more gym programs anymore. Video games all day long, right? Instant gratification in the classroom is going to make you go crazy. The classroom's not a video game, so they're being predisposed. And the problem with Adderall, they did a study. They brought people into a laboratory setting that had previously abused methamphetamine. They gave them one pill one day, one pill the next day. They said, guess which pill is methamphetamine, and guess which one is Adderall? And guess what happened? They can't tell the difference. When taken orally, no one can tell the difference between Adderall and methamphetamine. Isn't that chilling? And we give it out like candy. Chemically restraining children to behave themselves in the classroom. So we see that the goal to make addicts also involves death. If your mom dies of a drug overdose, guess what happens to you? Odds are you're going to die of a drug overdose. One of my former friends, Brandon, he had a daughter named Emily. And Emily's not doing so good right now. She overdosed just yesterday and she's in a rehab right now. We got her back on track. And so my friend Brandon died of a heroin overdose. And Emily was only 10 years old when he died. And so Emily's mom called me when she was 16 years old. She goes, Raj, you got to help Emily. I'm like, boy, I'm thinking innocent. I'm thinking, is she smoking weed? Is she got an MIP? She goes, no, she's doing heroin. I'm like, no. So I said a prayer. I had her come into my office for a session for free. And I began talking to her, began talking about me and her dad, how close we were, how he was sober for a period of time. He was proud of his sobriety. And I said, Emily, you know your dad died of a heroin overdose, right? And she's like, yeah. I go, then why would you ever want to try heroin? She goes, oh, Raj, as soon as I knew he died from that, I knew I was going to try it for sure. I want to know what he felt. Wow. I want to know what he felt. And when I use it, I feel closer to him. Is that chilling? Remember, because people say, if I tell kids not to do it, they won't do it. Modeling of behavior is more important than your words. You know, I told my kids, don't shoot heroin, Raj. I'm a really good father. No, you're not. You're shooting heroin. You were a really bad father. Sorry, on the father scale, no dice for you. See? And Brandon's death basically set her up for addiction. And then as you can imagine, when she was using drugs, she ran out of money. And so what'd you do for more money? Bad things. And then bad things happened to her while she was doing those things. And you saw this cycle of guilt and shame. All of a sudden, this begins to spiral out of control. And the sad thing is that when a person has a drug problem, right, odds are they've had a really bad childhood, bad things happen to them, right? And so many of them are traumatized. And after all that trauma and mistreatment and a raw deal on life, when they get caught using the very substance that they're self-medicating the pain with, where do they go to? Jail, where they get more what? Trauma and mistreatment and guilt and shame.